The Holy Gospel according to John, the 8th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said to the Jews who believed in him, "If you continued in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." They answered him, we are descendants of Abraham, and have never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean by saying you will be made free? Jesus answered them, "Very truly I tell you, everyone who commits sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not have a permanent place in the household. The Son has a place there forever. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. Coming on the heels of last year's 500th anniversary of the Reformation, and all the bells and whistles that came along with it, with publications and DVDs and glossy commercial opportunities, the 501st today might seem a little mundane in comparison. Just another year of the Reformation. Moving from the 500th to the 501st Reformation Sunday, we might seriously ask how the church has been reformed these past 365 days. And not just the church, but the Reformation speaks to our very hearts, our very souls, to our lives of discipleship, to our ideas and thoughts about who is loved by God, to challenge and expand the ways we experience God and know our Creator ever so intimately. Reformation, reforming, is not comfortable and presents scary realities that shake up our comfort levels. Preacher Joseph Crippen says of the challenge of Reformation, "Maybe our problem is that Reformation itself is elusive. Even for us who claim to be a church of the Reformation, we might want to ask if our commemoration of this day is meant to merely praise our history rather than earnestly pray that the triune God would continue to reform Christ's church." And on an intimate level, the Reformation has an intense way of awakening our hearts to challenge how we live out this life of faith, edging us closer and closer to embodying a reforming expression of the Christian tradition. And one of the most influential theologians from Martin Luther, whom we read from this morning, was Apostle Paul, especially his letter to the Romans. In a fit of panic and doubt, Luther toiled and toiled in his life over how to be perfect in order to enter in the kingdom of God. And Paul proved for Luther to be a healthy source of guidance, proclaiming that it's through faith and not by works that we are saved. By faith we are set free to love and serve God, to become closer to God, and to know God. And what a gift, what a realization that God is with us, walking with us. So a question that I have for today, that I offer in love, is what has happened in your life? What has happened in this church, Emmanuel? What has happened in our denomination, the ELCA, and the world at large over this past year that has brought the gospel even more alive? God's love expanded and strengthened. And stepping back for a little bit, if I can speak candidly with you, the reasons we celebrate Reformation Sunday, as alluring as they may be to celebrate our tradition and our history, always makes me feel a little uneasy. Celebrating a moment in time when the church became fractured into a million pieces, and for a large part remains the same way today. We so easily get distracted by the triumphalism of our tradition, of Luther's words that challenged authority. We trick ourselves into complacency by believing that we have all the answers and our Catholic sisters and brothers just need to catch up. Rather than celebrating a day in history and a fractured church, instead, we come together this morning to commemorate God's continual movement in our souls to love and care for all of creation. That's what Reformation is all about. And when we sing and we dance about God, well, maybe not so much dancing in the American Lutheran Church, but we do so because we have a burning desire to change our hearts, to use our gifts for the need of the world, to find new yet ancient ways of worshiping our God. We give thanks for God's grace, not because we have an affinity for a guy named Luther and his pals who lived 500 years ago, but we proclaim a God that accepts us for who we are, bringing us together through faith, not how perfect we think we are, or how hard we pray, or how much money is in our pockets. Besides, to get us to this moment, much pain and death has occurred. Wars have been waged. A German priest was excommunicated 501 years ago for spreading radical ideas about the church. And as much as we celebrate new faith expressions, we are also reminded of human limitations on all sides of religious and secular conflicts. Stubbornness on both sides that could not see a way past differences, where hard lines were drawn in the sand, Catholics here, Lutherans here. And the desire for the reformers was to challenge the structure and make it more suitable for the people, and we do the same today. So at the very heart of the Reformation, friends, is not a number. Whether it's 1517, 95 Theses, 501 years since then, Reformation Sunday is not a worship to Martin Luther. Instead, the Reformation, reforming our faith, is all about how faithfully we follow Jesus. We challenge how we understand the gospel, how far we are willing to go to become a welcoming, reconciling body of Jesus Christ. Reformation expands our hearts to open new pathways of who we love and accept as faithful believers because we take baptism seriously. Reformation is all about the entirely radical, almost unbelievable transformation made entirely possible by God. Not just a single Sunday of the year, but every Sunday we look to Scripture alone to ask how we can be more faithful stewards of God's creation. A God who is beyond our human limits. And if you visit one of our Lutheran seminaries today, you might be able to put your finger on the pulse of where the church is headed for the next 500 years. For my witness as a recent graduate, our seminaries are graduating committed, innovative, unified leaders who care deeply for the Lutheran Church and also the whole Church of Christ. And there is no doubt in my mind that we will seek for united pathways with our sisters and brothers in Christ, building our full communion partners. And our very own church, Emmanuel, is committed to the spark of the Reformation by working to maintain relationships across religious borders, especially now with our Jewish sisters and brothers in the wake of yesterday's terrible attack on the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh. We are called to open our doors to welcome the stranger, to build hope and service in our community with ministries and nonprofits such as the Hope Clinic. Begun a half a century ago, the Hunger Coalition is also an example of this partnership. It's a partnership of Ypsilanti churches who come into this space to cook meals to the community every single week. And in the future, we will explore new and innovative ways of getting to know our neighbors on this very street, like Cultivate, the Ipsy Co-op, the farmers markets, and all the businesses in Depot Town. And across the river with other churches and religious institutions, building bridges. And we are finding new ways to have more interaction and welcome for students from Eastern Michigan University, providing a safe space for them to come and feel supported. All around, God's action is leading us to reform our ministry, to discover new pathways of sharing God's love with the whole community. And an earnest question I have today. Because what else can we do? How can our faith be strengthened? Where else are we led? Who can we strengthen and build relationships with? And these questions will never go away, especially not before Reformation Sunday 2019. So at the very root of the Reformation, friends, are the ways that we are able to know the intimate life of faith that has the power to transform, to give new life, to reform our thoughts on institutions and ways forward together, to always improve and adjust. Stubborn in faith, yes, but abounding in grace and love, and expanding who we welcome and call partners of faith. And as a call to action, this Reformation Sunday and every Sunday until the 502nd anniversary, we praise our God who is reforming us to be faithful servants of the gospel, building on the faithful Reformation with hopes of future unity with the whole Church of Christ and all creation. Thanks be to God.